I'm Chief Meteorologist Jamie Simpson. Have any of you seen this image on Facebook showing what appears to be two moons in the sky? Maybe you've seen this circulating in an email. This is actually two moons from Saturn, by the way. Maybe you've heard. Will the moon be as big as Mars? Will it look like this? No, it will not. The truth is, it's a hoax. First circulated back in August 2003, and at that time, Mars was the closest to Earth in a long, long time, thousands of years. Then again in 2005, 2007, also hoaxes, and it's rumored to happen again at 12:30 a.m. on Tuesday. Well, what will you see? Well, the moon and Mars will be very close to each other in the sky, but Mars will only be about 1/140th the size of the moon, and it's all about the distance from the Earth. This is about how they'll look on that night and pretty much any other night. The average distance of the moon is 238,000 miles from Earth. Mars is a much larger planet. In fact, Mars is bigger than Earth, but at its closest, it's at 34 million miles. So if you do look outside up in the sky at that time, should look more like this.
Never seen pictures like this before from NASA. Amazing video of what looks like tornadoes on the sun.
Signs in the heavens and the earth.
And what we're seeing is that these events continue one after another.
There's been a lot of buzz over the last few weeks about strange sounds being heard in the atmosphere. People around the world and here at home have reported hearing some bizarre noises.
Some strange noises heard around the world the last few weeks, from Arizona to England and right next door in Manitoba, all showing folks alarmed by what sounds like a noise straight out of a science fiction flick.
It's kind of like watching a scary movie. The background noise gives you the feeling that something terrible is about to happen.
Strange, loud sound. Seems like it's coming from the sky, anyway.
I've heard that Jesus is coming back. I've heard that it's 2012, the world is ending.
This phenomenon stretched beyond North Battleford. Similar experiences were reported in Saskatoon, northern Saskatchewan, and parts of the U.S., even in Europe.
Sonidos muy similares a estos.
I've never seen this before. Are you doing video?
I have never seen this before, and I'm doing video. That's
correct. Can we please send it to James Spain and the Weather Channel?
That we are in the birth bank. Something is going on. We are in unprecedented, uncharted waters.
بالمجرى ومصدرها وتحديد نوعيتها، وبيبين صادر لاحقا عن الوزير المصدر مجرور مقفل ويرجح أن يكون
A terrible mystery gripping the world right now. Birds, fish, and all kinds of creatures just dropping dead.
For the second year on New Year's Eve, birds are falling from the sky in Beebe.
A mystery in Beebe, Arkansas. Birds falling dead from the sky on New Year's Eve for the second year in a row. Wildlife officials say
no one knows how these dolphins died, but hundreds have been found on beaches in Chiclayo, Peru. At least 260 dolphins washed ashore across a roughly 60-mile stretch of beach. Officials aren't sure what happened to them. An event like this is particularly unusual because dolphins aren't normally found in these seas.
Everywhere you look, you see the carcass of a dead turtle. Small turtles, large turtles, dozens of them dead and scattered along the banks of Smith Lake.
The birds just started falling from the sky.
This is really weird. Hundreds of birds literally just dropped from the sky and then landed on I-95, bringing traffic there to a crawl.
But earlier today, a lot of confusion and concern when birds which were flying in the sky started to crash to the pavement.
There were hundreds of them.
Never ever in my life have I seen anything like this. Crazy. Totally crazy.
Never seen it. I travel this all the time.
But I haven't heard of anything locally like that, ever.
Birds, fish, and all kinds of creatures just dropping dead.
Couldn't figure out what the heck happened. Never seen anything like it.
Something strange has happened in the skies above Britain. Police throughout Scotland and the north of England received calls of a bright light streaking across the sky on Saturday night.
These images over Harrogate, but there have been sightings across the country from Scotland, Wales, the north, right down to the East Midlands.
It was what observers are calling one of the best meteors ever seen in the UK. The object was seen as far south as Devon and may have landed in the English Channel.
Dozens of viewers have said they've seen a massive bright light in the sky in the last few hours, with most claiming it was a meteor.
You'll be hearing a lot about this next item over the next 11 months, but astronomers have identified a new asteroid about 150 feet across, which is headed our way and may come so close to Earth that it will pass between us and the satellites orbiting in space above us. There's some debate in the scientific community about whether a direct hit is even possible. This is called 2012 DA14. They say this will be the closest pass of an asteroid in the history of tracking such things. And again, while this pass is supposed to miss us, the experts all say there's nothing wrong with making sure your affairs are in order.
So should we be nervous about this whole thing?
This is a serious story because the latest round of solar flares captured in this incredible video. Take a look at this. It's from NASA overnight. The burst that you're seeing there, charged particles erupting off the surface of the sun. And we saw an even bigger solar flare Tuesday night. Right now, all of those particles are racing toward the Earth, as you said, about 4 million miles per hour. And it's growing as it gets closer to us. On top of that, the problems will arise when the flares reach the Earth's magnetic field, apparently. That's when we could see mass power.
It's like a cloud of birds, but a giant cloud.
It's really creepy. It's kind of like, is the world coming to an end here or something? I mean, it's scary.
The whole sky will fill up with black birds.
But it's crazy. It's scary, ain't it?
How many do you think? Like a million. It's like we're being held hostage.
Held hostage in maybe a 3-mile radius by blackbirds. When it comes down, it sounds like rain coming down. I mean, literally, from inside of our apartment, you think that it's raining outside.
What a sight this is. Thousands of dolphins swarm a whale-watching boat off the coast of Orange County.
You're looking at hundreds upon hundreds of dolphins breaching out of the water. The unusual spectacle was caught on tape.
Trying to figure out what caused that flash in the sky in the Northwest Valley. It happened this morning right here. If you haven't seen it, here we go. during Andrea's traffic report. Look, we're going to slow it down for you right there. Look in the background. Looks like some kind of very bright light, almost like it was an explosion or something. Our first thought was maybe a transformer. But we checked with APS and SRP. They said they haven't had any trouble. We haven't had any reports of any explosions either. Here it is one more time for you in slow-mo. So it is still a mystery.
Here it comes. Okay, I think we need to leave.
Take it away from us, Lord. Take it, Lord. Take it, Lord. Take it away from us, Jesus. Holy Ashiri, Asundari, Ashan. Father God, all powers in your Son's name. Take this stuff away from our home.
Destruction of that town here. Clinic is open every day. However you make hard money, you'll find great buyers, trusting experts and minds to give you the service options that respect you.
Making news this morning, killer storms.
And those storms are not over just yet. Cities torn apart after taking a direct hit from rare winter tornadoes. They're now bracing for more of the same.
Among the places hardest hit, Harrisburg, Illinois. 175-mile-an-hour winds, 2 football fields wide, left people dead. Homes were shredded, a strip mall flattened, entire buildings knocked off their foundations.
It's just unreal. It's like a war zone.
A somber Saturday morning as hundreds of thousands wake up to sheer devastation. This entire town's all gone, flattened in a flash. This massive storm spawned more tornadoes in one day than we usually see in an entire month.
Here's what we know right now. At least 29 people dead. The second round of killer tornadoes just this week.
95 tornadoes ripped through yesterday. If those are all confirmed reports, this would be the greatest tornado day, one-day event in March for all history.
It was almost never seen by Elijah or anybody else. Not because it's a tiny speck in a big old empty sky, but because of Craigslist.
You almost got rid of that like what, a week before?
Almost got rid of it a week before. I was trying to sell it on Craigslist, and I was getting offers. And man, you know what? At this time, you know, I'm glad I didn't sell it.
Aliens. Cody said he contacted a Vatican expert about the explosion and was told it could be some sort of light refraction.
Could be. Who knows?
Or aliens.
Or aliens, yeah, that's a possibility.
33 News Morning Edition. The time is 6:26. Okay, so you know how we ask you to send in your pics so we can put them in our newscast? Well, you've got to see what one viewer claims his friend found at a hunting camp in Berwick. I really don't even know what that is. The guy who sent it in didn't want us to mention his name, but tells us this is totally for real. He says last weekend his friend's family found one of their hunting camps destroyed, but the SIM card was still there, and so was this crazy image. I put the pic up on Facebook, and this is what some of you had to say about it. Steven says, keep going down, this is a computer-generated Photoshop image, and it's definitely not real. Okay, the next guy says, bring it up, those swamp people need to eat some food with those 2-inch biceps, okay. And our next person says, hey, I've got one that my friend snapped up here in North Louisiana with the same cam. Stance alien girl-looking thing floating in the background. So here's that pic. Okay, really creepy, isn't it? And we got the music to go along with it. Great.
Ya, güey. Ya, güey. ¿Te quedas aquí? ¡Calor, ya no! ¿Qué, güey? No, aquí. Yo voy por él. ¡Ay, no mames, güey! ¡Ya vieron! ¡No mames, güey! ¡Ya vieron! ¡No mames, güey! ¡Ya vieron! Yo voy por él. वो जगह से आगे नहीं आ रहा है वो जगह से आगे नहीं हो रहा वीडियो है वो रॉकेट में पीछे आग लगी है रॉकेट में आग लगी है
वो क्या है
आसमान में अजूबा
वो क्या है
आसमान में अजूबा क्या जूम करके आदमी का फोटो ले रहे क्या
Ever wonder what might lie out there deep in space? Do you want to believe we're not alone, that somewhere in the universe, intelligent life may actually exist?
Our next guest says there is life out there. It does exist. Dr. Charles Hall says he spent 2 years working with extraterrestrial beings during his time with the American military. He claims the US military has actually been in contact with alien species for years. And Dr. Charles Hall is here to explain, along with his wife Marie, live from what Bugs Bunny used to call Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, thank you both for your time. Terrific to have you with us. Firstly, Charles, can you tell us your story of how you managed to come into contact with these beings as you worked with the military?
I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I enlisted in the Air Force in July 1964, and I was trained as a weather observer, and I was sent to Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada, outside Las Vegas, Nevada, and for 2.5 years I was sent up to the gunnery ranges up at Indian Springs, and I was given a clearance to allow me to go anywhere in Dreamland as long as I was alone. I discovered that up there at the north end of Indian Springs Valley, which you can see on the map in the state of Nevada here in America, that there was a base which the U.S. Air Force maintained for a group of extraterrestrials who were tall and white. And I, as the duty weather observer, was allowed to go up there, or they were allowed to come down to where I was. And the interaction took place over more than 2 years.
Wow.
During those 2 years, I also came across, I also interacted to a lesser extent with the Roswell Greys, and I've also personally talked with the extraterrestrials that I call the Norwegians with 24 teeth, who come here from a very nearby star, perhaps Bernard star. And my experiences, my presentations, my books are unique because I'm the only person that I know of that was allowed to interact with the extraterrestrials, the tall whites, for more than 2 years.
So 3 different species of aliens you're talking about there, Charles?
Yeah, can you describe what they look like, what they were like?
Well, I'll start with the tall whites. They're thinner than we are, and they're very frail. Throughout most of their life, they are the same height as I am, 5'11", but they live 10 times longer than humans. They live 600 or 800 years.
Wow.
But they don't age the way we do. When they get to be equivalent to a human of about 40 years, that means when they're about 400 years, they start growing again instead of aging as humans.
Right.
And then they go, and this continues, and so that by the time they get to be 600 or 800 years old, they're very tall, 8.5, 9, or 10 feet tall. But this is not necessarily good because their skeleton grows more than their internal organs. And so there comes a time after 600 or 800 years when their skeleton, their body is tall, but their organs can't support it. At which time they die a natural death, because they're just flesh and blood creatures like we are. If they injure themselves, it takes them 10 times longer to heal up than a human.
Yeah.
So there's a trade-off.
Yeah, right. They still look fresh as a daisy when they go, though. They look like Tilda Swinton. Hey, just quickly, you had them there. You were working with the aliens on any particular project, or was the military working with the aliens on a particular project? Was there, I don't know, technology sharing, or botanical cross-fertilization?
The U.S. Air Force, and I'm speaking of the mid-1960s, was willing to give them anything they asked for. When I first met them, I was very afraid of them, and every human I met when you come across them out in the desert was naturally very afraid of them, and they were even more afraid of us. It's like running into a gorilla in the wild where the gorilla is on his home ground. So they had to go through a process of becoming used to being around humans before they could take part in the technology transfer program. I, as the weather observer, was the test human. As an enlisted man, I was expendable, you know.
Sure.
I was the one they send out to.
Always the weather guy.
What the big picture is here, which we haven't actually talked about between us, is extraterrestrial involvement.
You've got to be very careful about that. Oh, just put the question bluntly, you know, most people, all the alternative media and a lot of people now, I mean, just look, go back to the 50s, right? If you ask the ordinary man in the street in Walthamstow in England whether he believes in aliens, he'd laugh his head off and go and get some pie and mash. If you ask him today, he may well say, yeah, there has got to be something, because he's educated, he knows that that's vast the universe.
And he's being conditioned by Hollywood movies and television series. Which is all part of what I mean, we are being prepared to come to terms with this.
But not for the reasons you think.
For what reasons?
They're going to have nothing to do with us. They're there. If you, all right,
the ETs are going to have...
Let's call a spade a spade. Yeah, they exist. There is no conjecture. They do. Yeah, there is stuff. But you know what? That's no big surprise to 50% of people, shall we say.
Right.
But that number's gone up, hasn't it? You know, more and more people realise, you know, more important, you know, NASA have got more and more slapdash about, and cannot because of the very thing they created, the media monster behind trying to get money for the space race,
Yes.
is still there from the 60s.
Yes.
And people, there is a lot of people that are very interested in it. And so because of that, cameras are on the shuttle. And because of the internet and various people that are clever with the internet, Mr. McKinnon and people like that, who I know very well.
Do you know Gary McKinnon?
I'll tell you a story about him later on.
Off record?
Yeah.
That's a shame. Okay. All right. We're talking about cameras on the shuttle and people who are clever with computers.
What I'm trying to say is, you can't, there's so many now.
Yes.
You can't keep your lid on everything.
You're saying it's impossible to hide the reality.
And there's a certain piece of video that is quite prevalent on the internet of a circular thing rolling behind a tether.
Yes, I know that one.
That's factual.
Yes.
A couple of miles across, but it's not a ship, and things aren't what you think they are out there. You should regard space more as an ocean.
Okay.
Yeah. We've got no right to turn around and say intelligent or unintelligent, you know, because then what you're doing, you're comparing things to your intellect, aren't you?
Okay.
And how can you compare that to a human?
Are you stating this as a fact?
Absolutely.
A fact. And what you're talking about here is you're talking about large living beings, like big kind of...
And small.
And small living beings.
Look at it this way, if you've got a shark swimming through the ocean, he's got fish swimming all around him most of the time, picking up morsels, servicing him, and he doesn't eat them. They go right in his mouth.
Yes, yes, yes.
And come out. You know, that's a natural thing, yeah?
Yeah.
Is it so far-fetched for you to understand that that could be the situation out there?
Okay. But at the same time, there are some what we could regard as metallic craft, things that you could call spacecraft.
Right.
As well.
Yeah.
Right.
But tell you what, I've got an axe to grind here, so let me grind my axe. Right?
You do that.
Okay, so here you are, you're an alien, yeah, you're on the other side of the universe, right, for instance, yeah, you're in Orion, yeah, you're that far away, yeah, you're in your ship and you're flying all the way here, and you cross intergalactic space in a fantastic piece of machinery, yeah, and then you crash in Nevada.
Right.
Rubbish!
Okay.
Rubbish! You're shot down.
Okay.
That's what happened to you.
Yes.
Because you didn't think that there was any kind of particle weapon or kinetic weapon that could do that.
Yes.
Well, you wasn't prepared because it was the first time you came.
Yes. That was, it was got something to do with radar, wasn't it? They discovered that radar would actually do this.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Well, it was quite an aggressive... It wasn't an accident.
Okay. I've got you. So you're saying that the so-called crashes weren't crashes, they're actually offensive actions which were discovered...
I ask you to understand that because you don't cross intergalactic space and then crash in Nevada, do you?
I understand that.
You see, that's my axe there, so sorry, go on.
I've got you, that's fine. So you're saying that initially there was a way of bringing the craft down that was discovered by accident, and then it was, more or less, and then it was fairly quickly...
It was a deliberate attempt.
Utilised.
Amazing that it worked.
Yes, right.
And then when it did, so
it's a lucky hit, and then they started to get focused about it.
Yeah, well, they realised that it could be done, and then went down the avenue of trying to figure out how they done it and what actually did cause it, and they needed to look at the thing that they brought down to do that.
Yes, and then
they educated them, so they became much better at it.
Yes, because then you got the Americans mainly, I guess. Was it only the Americans? Did this happen in every country?
No, let's drop the borders and the nationalities.
Okay. So then you got people who are pretty smart, who got their hands on this ET technology, and that was never part of the setup. That was never part of the plan, was it?
No.
It was never part of the plan.
No.
Okay. And what kind of problems has that caused?
Well, you know what we're like. It's not caused... They want to go. We're going to be the visitors.
So that's what the selection's about. Okay, it's about creating a sort of space crew or a
and remember,
new...
it's second-hand, so...
I understand that. A new breed of humanity who will be well equipped to go off into the cosmos like the Crusaders.
Yeah. Yeah, like the Crusaders.
Like the Crusaders. And it's like you give... It's like you've got the spirit of the Crusaders and you give them extraterrestrial technology to move with.
There you go.
And then...
And are any of us in any doubt that we're going to start planet hopping within the next century? Are you actually in any doubt with the technologies available now? Because we're doing it with robots.
personally, I'm in no doubt at all that we've got a Mars base.
Oh, right, okay.
but are closer than an all-time high. NASA has sat around and lied to us about how close this stuff is, and its all-time great highs of watching all these images like this here and this, and we're going to get even a little bit better, I think, and probably you might have already seen some real good stuff through what I've already showed you because I blow these up. I blew these up as much as I could when I'm on a regular screen. I think you can get it to 200%. Okay? So you're seeing planets and so forth, and what you actually see when you go to my site, and there's way more than one out there, ladies and gentlemen, because tons of stuff in space is triangulation. There you go. That is Blink 229, Lumi 229, CL 101 229. NASA has all kinds of goddamn numbers to mess everybody up in what something is in space. Okay? This is actual footage that I did not steal from NASA, but a former employee got it out. enemy to the United States of America? Quite possibly he was. But it's still factual data that the government's not going to show you, okay? Now, there is way more than one of these out there, i.e., we have this.
Welcome back, everybody. We've just received new video of the Israeli Air Force strike Peter Ducey mentioned earlier in our show. The Air Force struck down an unmanned aircraft flying over their airspace. Now, officials are saying they are still trying to figure out where the drone came from.
A part of that plan, of course, is to induce the gradual surrender of American sovereignty, piece by piece and step by step, to various international organizations, of which the United Nations is the outstanding but far from the only example. Now, here are the aims for the United States. 1, greatly expanded government spending for every conceivable means of getting rid of ever larger sums of American money as wastefully as possible. 2, higher and then much higher taxes. 3, an increasingly unbalanced budget despite the higher taxes. 4, wild inflation of our currency. 5, government controls of prices, wages, and materials, supposedly to combat inflation. 6, greatly increased socialistic controls over every operation of our economy and every activity of our daily lives. This is to be accompanied, naturally and automatically, by a correspondingly huge increase in the size of our bureaucracy and in both the cost and reach of our domestic government. 7, far more centralization of power in Washington and the practical elimination of our state lines. There is a many-faceted drive at work to have our state lines eventually mean no more within the nation than our county lines do now within the states. 8, the steady advance of federal aid to and control over our educational system, leading to complete federalization of our public education. 9, a constant hammering into the American consciousness of the horror of modern warfare, the beauties and the absolute necessity of peace, peace always on communist terms, of course. And 10, the consequent willingness of the American people to allow the steps of appeasement by our government which amount to a piecemeal surrender of the rest of the free world and of the United States itself. So brush the insider's dust out of your eyes, my friends, and the communist soap suds out of your brain, and ask yourselves in all honesty, what on earth is wrong with the United States simply minding its own business? Or with having its foreign policy function primarily for the safety and benefit of the American people. Which is exactly what we had done for the first 140 years of our existence as a nation, to the incredible advantage of ourselves and everybody else. Everybody, that is, except a numerically small clique of power-lusting conspirators who had somehow inflicted themselves on a gullible world. While we turn to a very brief summarization of what we hope the John Birch Society will help and even sometimes lead the American people to accomplish during the next 15 years. 1, our first and most important specific undertaking should be to restore the complete independence of the United States. This includes our resolution to get us out of the United Nations and get the United Nations out of the United States. Two, we must once again make our money freely redeemable in gold at some realistic price. And we must take all practicable legislative steps to prevent a recurrence of the enormous thievery and other subversive crimes that have been perpetrated on the American people through a contrived inflation by every president from Franklin Roosevelt through Richard Nixon. Three, we should reduce the number of government bureaus, of government civilian employees, and the whole quantity of government by at least 50%. And we should achieve at least this much reduction in proper fashion through gradually convincing a majority of the American people of the wisdom of such a course. Four, we should withdraw all American troops from every spot on earth that is not American soil, except when and where such troops may be required as decided by Congress to protect American lives and property from criminal vandalism. Five, we should get government out of the areas and functions and activities where government does not belong. Again, all steps to this end should be taken gradually, but nevertheless just as rapidly as enough of the American people can be persuaded to support such progress. Any such achievement will require a truly massive educational force, but that's exactly what we hope to build during the next 15 years. We could go ahead for at least 100 numbered items, but the John Birch Society will undoubtedly be working on more than that many specific projects, which will be laid out in its bulletins before another 180 months will have rolled around. And all of these projects will fit into the general pattern indicated by the 5 major objectives listed above. So let's really wind up this marathon monologue with one final thought. None of us can guarantee anything about what the future will bring. Your speaker knows what a job we have before us to rid our country of the scourge of communism within the next few years, and then to go ahead on our constructive program so well that 15 years from now we shall already be entering an era of far less government, of a much sounder sense of responsibility, and, with God's help, of a better world. But I sincerely believe that it can be done, and this much I know. If every man and woman in this audience should leave here tonight feeling in his or her own mind and heart that it can and must be done, then it surely will be. And so, all of you patriots of good character, good conscience, and noble ideals, whom we can reach with the filmed version of this speech in 1,000 other audiences, it is with a great deal of confidence and energizing will to win that we invite you to join us in our epic undertaking. While to all of you great, wonderful friends in this present audience, I certainly extend my very deep thanks indeed for so much patience and attention. Thank you and good night.
Well, maybe you saw it, something burning across the horizon this morning. It is the second time in 3 weeks we've seen it in our area. This time, people took pictures. KPTV's Amy Troy has a look at some Fox 12 viewer photos. Amy, what was it?
Well, Shauna, the jury is still out. Scientists are still looking over all the reports, all the photographs. Luckily, with our clear skies, there are lots of photos. People saw it, they snapped pictures of it, they sent these in to our newsroom. Some described it like a line in the sky grew into a fireball. Now, a pilot described it as contrails left behind a jet. We talked with an astronomer at OMSI. He says there are great pictures, but no reports of a sonic boom, and that's key. He says when a fireball, a piece of an asteroid, enters our atmosphere, we hear it, and there are no reports of this so far.
And looking at the picture, it looked like that was a fairly good sized chunk. Then the explosion, where's the flash? There hasn't been any reports of any such thing yet.
He says we should know what it is in a couple of days. You may remember back on October 30th, many saw a fireball in the sky. That was a meteor entering our atmosphere. It came in over Washington State and then landed in the Pacific Ocean. Reporting live, Amy Troy, the 5 o'clock news.
The fireball flew Friday night. The East Coast does not mean the end of Western civilization as we know it. Although you may have succumbed to the prophecy that some social media stopped running. The sky lit along the entire U.S. East Coast. Those who saw it described it as a thin stripe of blue-green-white, explains Chip Guy, who was driving in eastern Maryland when he and his family saw him. It did not last more than 8 or 9 seconds, and then disappeared, said a spokesman. Guy, Sussex County, Delaware. Frankly, I did not think too much about it, he says, but became concerned when he published it in the web of the local media. Triggered a rapid and overwhelming. That was just the tip of the iceberg of what was going to happen that night. Throughout Friday night, every few seconds a message appeared on Twitter from someone who had seen the meteor. Some of the messages were from the cities of New York and Washington.
That wasn't thunder. That was that thing blown up. Oh my God, there it goes again. I don't care, that woke me up. Oh, it's still booming. Holy shit.
UFO sightings in Canada doubled last year to just under 2,000 reports. Stephen Petticombe has the details from one place where something strange was spotted.
The 2012 UFO survey done out of Winnipeg, Manitoba has a surprising result. There was more sightings than ever before in the history of the survey. There were 1,981 UFO sightings reported in the country last year, about 5 a day. That's more than twice the number of reports in 2011 when there was 986. Now, the number of cases in 2012 completely eclipses all previous records for the highest reports in 1 year, which was 1,004 in 2008.
Turns out that it was just a matter of that all the sources seem to reply that they had an increase in the number of UFO reports. So it's something across the board. People in Canada were actually looking up into the sky more often than in the previous year.
Ontario had more than 40% of sightings, but that's mainly because their population is so large. In 2012, about 7.5% of all UFO reports were judged to be unexplained. The percentage dropped from 11% the year before. Typical UFO sighting lasted about 15 minutes, and there were all kinds of shapes, sizes, and lights seen in the air, many of which could be explained. But again, 7.5% couldn't be.
Now, an alien invasion, could it really happen? The U.S. military is making plans just in case.
What are the official plans for contact with extraterrestrials? Will they come in peace or war? And what can humanity do in the face of alien invasion?
Yes, it is best to be prepared for anything, and Professor Paul Springer from the U.S. Air Command and Staff College would advise the military in the event of an invasion. He had to get special government clearance to talk to us, and I spoke to him earlier. Paul, it's an incredibly difficult thing, isn't it, to plan to fight back against an enemy we would know absolutely nothing about?
Well, that's absolutely true, but at the same time, we make all kinds of contingency and war plans against enemies that we never expected to face in combat. And so the idea that maybe the enemy will have something technological or doctrinal that we've never foreseen is something that we try to plan for any way that we can.
Well, obviously, if we did get invaded, these aliens would be much more technologically advanced than we are because we didn't even know they were there. How would you go about fighting an enemy that was just so infinitely superior in technology?
Well, the first thing you'd want to try to do is preserve your forces as best you could. You would want to learn as much about the enemy as possible, and that would mean things like trying to find vulnerabilities, trying to capture technology. But survival is your first priority, because if you send all of your forces into the field and have them destroyed by that superior enemy force, then when you do find a vulnerability, you won't have any opportunity to exploit it.
What do you think would be the alien plan? What would they do first?
That really depends on why they're here in the first place. If they're here for the extraction of a specific resource, for example, they might want to just eliminate any resistance that might block them from their objective. If, on the other hand, their goal was actual occupation and conquest, then they would probably have to prioritize anything that they perceive to be a threat to their own dominance. And so that would probably start by wiping out as many communications networks as possible and eliminating as many weapons as might represent some form of threat either to them or to the resources that they're trying to extract. So they might very well want to counter every nuclear weapon, not because it represented a threat to them, but because it might destroy whatever they're here to collect.
Is this something, this kind of planning, that governments around the world do consider?
It is, in the same way that governments do plan for any future potential calamities or conflicts. This is the type of thing that, because it's neutral, you're not provoking a fight or assuming a fight with a country that you might want to maintain a good diplomatic relationship with. If you insert alien in place.
2 years ago, from my research, I'm convinced it's much more serious than that. It's more than a loose-knit network. It is a conspiracy. In 1784, a copy of this document was sent to the illuminist Weishaupt and delegated to foment the French Revolution. I mean, the Illuminati was responsible for the French Revolution. Yes, absolutely. The courier was struck dead by lightning as he rode through Ratisbon on his way from Frankfurt to Paris. What about a little divine intervention there, huh? The police found the subversive documents on his body and turned them over to the proper government authorities. After careful study of the plot, the Bavarian government ordered the police to raid Weissaup's newly organized lodges of the Grand Orient and the homes of some of the most influential associates, including the castle of Baron Bassen-Sonderdorf. Additional evidence was thus obtained convinced the authorities that documents were a genuine copy of a conspiracy by which the Synagogue of Satan had controlled the Illuminati at the top, planned to use wars and revolutions to bring about the establishment of one kind or another of a one-world government, the powers of which they intended to usurp as soon as it was established. In 1785, the Bavarian government outlawed the Illuminati and closed the lodges of the Grand Orient. In 1786, they published the details of the conspiracy.
The new order of the world, our enterprise is now a success. He said these blind slaves say they are free and highly educated, even as they march behind, notice this word, signs. Have you ever taken time to analyze a sign or a billboard or a logo?
We'll start up here. In 1784, an act of God placed the Bavarian government in possession of evidence which proved the existence of the continuing Luciferian conspiracy. This explains the previous 9 pages, goes into it in detail. We don't have time to do it completely. Conspiracy. Adam Weishaupt, a Jesuit-trained professor of canon law, defected from Christianity and embraced the Luciferian ideology while teaching at Ingolstadt University. In 1770, the money lenders who had recently organized the House of Rothschild retained him to revise and modernize the age-old protocols designed to give the Synagogue of Satan ultimate world domination so they can impose the Luciferian ideology upon what remains of the human race after the final social cataclysm by use of satanic despotism. Weishaupt completed his task on May the 1st, 1776. It's a communist holiday, isn't it? May 1, 1776. The plan required the destruction of all existing governments and religions. In 1776, Weishaupt organized the Illuminati to put the plot into execution. The word Illuminati is derived from Lucifer and means holders of the light. Weishaupt's revised plan required his Illuminati to do the following things to help them accomplish their purpose. 1, use monetary and sex bribery to obtain control of people already occupying positions in high places in the various levels of all governments and other fields of human endeavor. Once an influential person had fallen for the lies, deceits, and temptations of the Illuminati, they were to be held in bondage by application of political and other forms of blackmail and threats of financial ruin, public exposure, and physical harm, and even death to themselves and their loved ones. Number 12, told those present that they must use their wealth to have candidates chosen to public office who would be obedient to their demands and would be used as pawns in the game by the men behind the scenes. The advisors will have been bred, reared, and trained from childhood to rule the affairs of the world. Number 13, control the press. Number 16, infiltrate into the secret Freemasonry to be used for their purposes. That's been documented many times. Number 17, expound the value of systematic deception, use high-sounding slogans and phrases, and advocate lavish promises to the masses, even though they cannot be kept.
I will not forget the wound to our country and those who inflicted it. I will not yield. I will not rest. I will not relent in waging this struggle for freedom and security for the American people. So I don't know where he is. Nor, I just don't spend that much time on him. We will not tire. We will not falter. And we will not fail. Terror is bigger than one person.
And I remember he was telling me how how you're going to see soldiers looking in caves for people in Afghanistan and Pakistan and all these places, and there's going to be this war on terror, of which there's no real enemy.
Who knows if he's hiding in some cave or not? We hadn't heard from him in a long time.
Operation Northwoods, the plan called for innocent people to be shot on American streets. This is the Pentagon. For boats carrying refugees fleeing Cuba to be sunk on the high seas. For a wave of violent terrorism to be launched in Washington, D.C., Miami, and elsewhere. People would be framed for bombings they did not commit. Planes would be hijacked using phony evidence, all of which would be blamed on Castro to justify an invasion of Cuba 40 years ago. An aircraft at Elgin Air Force Base would be painted and numbered as an exact duplicate for a civil registered aircraft belonging to a CIA proprietary organization in the Miami area. At a designate time, the duplicate would be substituted for the actual civil aircraft and would be loaded with selected passengers, all boarded under carefully prepared aliases. The actual registered aircraft would be converted into a drone, remote controlled plane, their word for it. Takeoff times of the drone aircraft and the actual aircraft would be scheduled to allow a rendezvous south of Florida.
I mean, he's been tested unlike any other president. This 9/11. We have in this past year made great progress in ending the long era of conflict and Cold War. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be.
He argued that the use of any and all means to reach their final goal was justified on the grounds that the ruler who governed by the moral code was not a skilled politician because he left himself vulnerable and is in unsuitable position to his throne. He said, those who wish to rule must have recourse to cunning and to make-believe because great national qualities like frankness and honesty are vices in politics.
Fellow citizens, will meet violence with patient justice, assured of the rightness of our cause, and confident of the victories to come. In all that lies before us, may God grant us wisdom, and may He watch over the United States of America.
Snorkelers brought to shore on Catalina Island the odd-looking fish believed to be what the ancient mariners described as sea serpents.
And no wonder. I get it now. KTLA's Dave Meekum is live in Long Beach with more on the unusual find. Incredible. Hi, Dave.
Incredible. What a sight, huh? I can look at that picture forever. We're talking the mighty oarfish, and for the crew and others on the schooner over there, Avalon-based, next to the riverboat, what a surprise.
This one's 18 feet long. It took 25 of us to pick it up. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Rare and mysterious, that's not overselling it, as oarfish are largely uncharted territory for scientists. Jasmine Santana of the Catalina Island Marine Institute made the discovery of the recently deceased oarfish on Sunday at a depth of about 15 feet on the island's Toyon Bay. One of her counterparts from the Avalon-based Tole Moore was there. spoke with us via Skype from Catalina.
She was snorkeling, sees this giant fish on the bottom of the ocean, swims down, grabs it by the tail, and swims it to the beach. It was awesome. There were people sprinting to go and see this fish.
Louisiana State University's Dr. Mark Benfield, the marine biologist, shared this rare video with KTLA. It was shot in the Gulf of Mexico a couple years back. It is one of a kind, as the giant oarfish spends most of its time slithering through the ocean's deepest depths beneath tropical waters and is rarely seen at the surface. Back in 1996, a group of Navy SEALs found a 23-footer.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.